Hello everybody and welcome to the Penelope Possum channel. With me, your host is Penelope the Possum. We're going to be reading some more creepypastas today because I totally fricked up and totally didn't do that last time. I promised to do it. Give it a moment, folks. I'm gonna look in my phone and see if I saved any. Read that. Read that. I think I read this one. Don't think I read that one. It's gonna take a while. Hold on. We're gonna... If I can find the one I'm looking for. Uh... We'll just go for a random one. Because the ones I'm trying to find are just not available. Let's read a classic one. Maybe. Maybe not. would be cool if I had the option to just get a random one. It's okay. We're still looking for a story. Let's just do this one, I guess. This is Aqua Eternia, written by Micah Edwards, edited by Craig Groshek, and thumbnail art by Craig Groshek. There is no current narrations of this particular story. Its rating is 10 out of 10 from 2 votes. You've been on since I started the stream, just didn't say anything? That's fine. Don't always gotta say something as soon as I start. You're a lurker? Ugh, creepy. Don't lurk. Lurking's creepy. That's what monsters do. Don't lurk. Monsters lurk. Anyways. It's a 10 out of 10 from 2 votes, so I'm not sure how good it could be. The submarine mess hall was a total chaos. It rang with clanging trays, raised voices, and a general hubbub. Even so, Nathan's head snapped up when the first rivet panged free. The sharp fracturing of metal was followed immediately by a second report as the massive pressure of the ocean flung the failed piece of metal against the far wall. Water sprayed, a compact but concerning fan. No one else seemed to have noticed. They all remained intent on their food and conversations, unaware of the slow bend developing in the steel plate above them. Another rivet sprang loose. The one below it was already under visible strain. When it went, the entire panel would come off all at once. Nathan shouted, "The sub's coming apart!" No one heard him over the din. He gesticulated wildly. No one even glanced in his direction. Nathan was as invisible to the rest of the mess hall as the encroaching water, which was now sheeting down the wall. Frantic, Nathan grabbed the sailor next to him. The man looked up in surprise. "What's up?" But before Nathan could answer, the rest of the plate gave way. The rivets popped off in a split-second succession. The rapid rattle subsumed in the triumphant roar of the invading ocean. A wall of water hit Nathan like a fire hose, sweeping him off his feet. And smashing him against the bulkhead behind him. He opened his mouth to scream, but the water swarmed into his mouth and stole his voice. The cold paralyzed him. The salt burned his eyes, nose, and mouth. The ocean was everywhere as it filled the room, even as the pressure crushed the life from Nathan's body. His crewmates carried on as if nothing was happening. As the room grew dark, the man Nathan had grabbed addressed him. "Stop fighting, man. It's so much easier once you just let go." With one final Herculean effort, Nathan forced a yell from his frozen lips. The sound forced the water away, and suddenly he was wrapped in blankets instead. thrashing to get free of his narrow bunk. "Shut up!" came a tired voice from above him. "I swear I will actually drown you just to get a full night's sleep." Drowsy agreement echoed from various racks around the room. Nathan mopped the sweat from his body with damp sheets and tried to slow his racing heart. "I can't believe they..." That was loud. "Let you onto a submarine with nightmares like this," grumbled his bunkmate. The metal squeaked as he rolled over, resuming his interrupted slumber. Honestly, Nathan agreed with the complaints. If he had known this would be how he reacted, he never would have signed up. The dreams were new. Though he's always loved the ocean growing up, he'd never had an issue with tight spaces. Even the first month of the voyage had been no problem. The dreams had just started seemingly at random. One night, they always began in an innocuous manner, mimicking the same portion of day-to-day life on the vessel. They always ended with his agonizing death in the uncompromising embrace of the ocean. He probably should talk to the sub's doctor. He knew the problem was that people sealed up together for months on end got antsy when they heard someone else was having mental issues. Theoretically, the conversation with the doc would be private, but gossip had a way of getting out. Better to let everyone think it was seasickness or something else innocuous. He didn't need the doctor. He could handle this on his own. He just needed more sleep. Nathan attempted to pull up his blankets, but they were tangled around his legs. He shifted slightly, trying to get loose from his self-imposed cocoon. As the blankets pulled free, he felt something cold and wet flop against his leg. Confused and alarmed, Nathan reached into the blankets, his hand wrapped around something scaly and damp. He pulled it free to reveal a fish struggling weakly in his grasp. It whipped its tail ineffectually against his hand. Its bulging eyes stared at him, as lost and out of place as he felt. Even as he stared in the fish in hand, Nathan felt another brush up against his body beneath the sheets. It was joined by two more, then three, and the entire bed was alive with the thrashing of the surrounded fish. Their fins scraped at his skin, their scales caught on his hair. He screamed and threw the blankets away, sweeping the fish from his bed in huge sweeping waves. Suddenly, they were gone. He was alone in his bed again, panting and cold. His bunkmate stood next to the rack with a bucket in his hands. "I told you to shut up," he growled. "I'm trying to sleep." He seized Nathan's head and dragged him forward, forcing him face down in the bucket. Cold seawater surged up Nathan's nose as he fought for air. He grabbed at his bunkmate's arms for purchase, but the man's skin was as slippery as the scales a fish had been. There was no air. There was no escape. The ocean had him. Nathan stared blankly at the mop in his hand. How long had he been mopping up the bathroom? He couldn't even remember starting. The floor was wet and the bucket was half empty. He must almost be done. The bucket reminded him of something. He willed the memory to the surface, but it drifted right out of reach. And out of shadow in the depths. Sighing, he plunged the mop into the murky waters and slapped it against the floor. It was only a day until he docked. Shore leave was coming up. He could get rest on shore. He could get away from the ever-present reek of the ocean. Smell shouldn't be able to get inside. Not in their hermetically sealed environment. But it did. Everything stank of salt and dead fish. The doors to the bathroom stalls were all closed. I must have opened those, Nathan muttered. I wouldn't have mopped around them. I had to have done them already. The mop bucket was full to the brim, though. Hadn't it just been half empty? Maybe it just started after all. He couldn't remember. Something moved in one of the stalls. It made a sound like a fish flopping onto the deck of a boat. The stink of the ocean intensified. Nathan jammed the mop into the bucket, slopping salt water all over the floor. He made a beeline to the door and fled the room. Nothing the Navy could do to punish him would make him look in those stalls. What were they gonna do? Give him scut work? He was already cleaning the bathroom. A thought occurred to Nathan as he hurried down the hallway. They could cancel his shore leave. Reluctantly, he crept back. He could at least retrieve the bucket. They would never know if the floor had been thoroughly cleaned. It wasn't like anyone was going to check. He opened the door and the bathroom was gone. In its place, empty, endless ocean. The bodies of sailors drifted randomly about. The faces of their corpses were white, hands and feet pruned from long exposure to the water. Nathan closed the door. The outside said head. It should have led to the toilet. He did not open it again. Squires! Something was gripping his shoulder. He panicked. Nathan lashed out. Stop fighting, young man. If you slept half this well in your bunk, you wouldn't be falling asleep at chow. Nathan was in the mess hall. A sailor was shaking him awake. His expression halfway between amusement and concern. His words sounded familiar for some reasons. Nathan grabbed for it, but the idea slipped away like the water being taken back by the tide. It was his bunkmate, Nathan thought. He didn't know this man's name. Why didn't he? They'd been on the sub together for months. The man slept above him. He had to know his name. It was gone, slippery as an eel. Nathan wanted to ask. He thought it might help anchor him, but he was afraid to admit he didn't know. You gonna eat your calamari? The man asked. Calamari? That's a little random for a naval submarine, don't you guys think? That sounds a little wrong for a Navy submarine. They don't usually eat things like that, do they? I don't know. I've never been in the Navy. If anyone watching this has been in the Navy, tell me if you guys eat calamari regularly. Nathan looked down at his metal tray. Tentacles were piled up on the plate like thick spaghetti. They were fresh and gleaming. The wounds at the ends glistened like mouths. One of the tentacles twitched. Ooh, fresh calamari. Yum, yum, yum. Nathan shook his head and pushed the tray slightly farther away.
I don't think calamari is typical of Navy food.
I didn't think so. Suit yourself. The sailor pulled Nathan's tray over and began to suck down the thick, rubbery arms. Any other descriptor than thick would have been nice here. They waved frantically as he drew them into his mouth, their suction cups popping lightly as they sought purchase against his cheek. Holding out for a burger landside? The man's voice was almost unintelligible around his determined chewing. Land. Nathan grabbed onto the idea as a lifeline. We were almost to shore. He'd get off the sub and everything would be fine. And then, when it was time to get back on, well, He would sort that out when he had to. Maybe it would be fine by then. They couldn't force him. Sure, they could kick him out or even put him in jail. But at least he'd be on land. He'd be away from the streams and the salt and the fish. He'd be free. Chewing sounds continued. They were coming from all around. Nathan looked. Oh, now. They were coming from all around Nathan now. Everywhere he looked, sailors had severed squid arms heaped in front of them. They were all shoveling them into their mouths like there was no tomorrow. Disgusted, Nathan left the mess hall. The solid metal door sealed the sound away behind him. They were almost to land. Just a few more hours. He could hold out that long. Nathan paced the corridors, his eyes constantly flicking to his watch. The numbers barely seemed to change. Something was going wrong. He knew. A hull breach, a storm, a mutiny. He didn't know what. He only knew that somehow he would be prevented from reaching land. And so he determinedly stalked the halls, looking for anything that might be off. Every small noise from the sub, every creak, click, and groan had him searching the walls for imperfections. Paranoia grew with every group of sailors whose conversation fell silent when he drew close. They were all staring at him, and why not? He knew he looked crazed, but was that the only reason? Why did they all stop talking and look at him with suspicion? What were they hiding? 2 hours to go. He knew he should see the doctor. Surely the man could give him something to calm him down for such a short amount of time. He wouldn't ask any probing questions, not for a one-time suspension like this. He wouldn't spread rumors. The door to the doctor's room was ajar. From inside, Nathan heard a slurping, gnawing sound. It was the sound he'd heard leaving the mess hall. The sound of hundreds of mouths gnashing their way through resistant flesh. The doctor's office was only designed to hold a few men at a time. Perhaps a dozen could have crowded in if they tried. Nathan surely would have been able to see through them, some of them through the crack in the door, though. And instead, all he saw was an empty office with strange shadows undulating on the wall. He could not tell what cast them, and he was afraid to find out. Nathan returned to the barracks to pack his duffel bag for shore leave. All around him, fellow soldiers chattered, discussing plans, bragging about upcoming exploits. It was normal, simple. For just a moment, Nathan let himself relax. When he reached in to gather his clothes, he found that they were sopping wet. Angry, he looked around to find who had pranked him, but his words of accusation died on his lips. Water ran from the belongings of every sailor. They did not seem to notice as they packed the drowned articles into their bags. Seawater spilled everywhere, soaking the bags, covering the floor in a tidal slick. It spattered up from their socks and bare feet as they walked. And yet they saw and felt nothing. Nathan crammed himself into his narrow bunk, tucked his feet up off the floor, and wrung out his clothes as he best could. He lay on his cot, staring at the metal ceiling only inches from his face, and prayed for landfall. When the call came at last, Nathan thought for a moment he had imagined it. All through the room, however, sailors were shouldering their bags and shoving for the exits. The water on the floor was gone. The bags were dry. Tentatively, Nathan swung his feet down and touched nothing but cool metal. He joined the mass of sailors as they moved toward the top deck, certain that every shoulder he bumped was going to be cold and clammy. None were, though, and Nathan slowly allowed his enthusiasm to wash over him and carrying him along. They were singing a song which he didn't recognize, some old nautical tune which everyone else knew the words. Nathan mouthed along, trying to pick up at least enough of the chorus to join in. For I'm off to land for a spell, though the land cannot hold me, for though I do love the ground so well, I'll never leave the sea. It's probably not the right tune, but that's what you guys are getting. Words sent a chill down Nathan's spine. He suddenly felt trapped by the crowd, a fish caught in a net. Before he could begin fighting his way through the crush of bodies, however, the doors were open. The crowd surged forward with a roar. Nathan was dragged along with them. He knew it was a trick, a trap. His crewmates could not hear him over their enthusiasm as they poured into the light. Yet somehow it wasn't. He was blinking in the sunlight, his feet planted on ground that did not sway or creak or groan. There were no walls anywhere near him, no doorways to duck through, and best of all, the ocean was a mere lapping presence behind him. And as he strode forward into the town, he could feel it being left behind. It wanted him, Nathan knew. It was angry that he was leaving, furious that he had escaped. Nathan exulted in its impotent rage. He found a bar with outside seating where he could see the sky. He ordered a burger and fries with a salad made with fresh vegetables grown in the dirt. Nothing in his meal had ever seen the sea, and it was the best food Nathan had ever tasted. Many of the hotels offered seaside view. Nathan headed further into town, away from those. He found a nice place without a pool and booked a room that overlooked the main road. When he opened his window, he could hear the sounds of traffic, and no matter how much he strained, he could not hear the sea. He fell asleep on his bed with a huge smile on his face. Nathan found himself in the middle of a somber, seated crowd. He tensed, ready for whatever sea-based nightmare his mind had conjured up, but relaxed when he realized he was still on land. The people around him wore suits and dress uniforms, sat in uncomfortable folding chairs whose legs sank into the grassy field unevenly. Their attention was on a stage at the front where an admiral stood behind a lectern and read along a list of names. Porter Robinson, John Rocco, Abraham Rubens. The names sounded familiar, but Nathan could not place them. He looked around for context clues. The stage was set with several American flags. A large poster of a submarine leaned on a wire easel to one side of the stage. The wind tugged at it, but it had been pinned in place. Two more somber people had sat flanking the admiral. Their uniforms identified them as Navy captains. Their role appeared to be simply to add gravitas to the situation. They said nothing and watched the crowd. William Severn, Michael Schaefer, Corey Shanks. I'm using a ruler to help me read. The names circled like sharks just below Nathan's conscious memory. The setting suggested that there had been a naval disaster and that these must be the names of lost sailors. How did he met them? Did he know them? Chen Soon, Edwin Spader. Memory rose up from the dark. Ed was the man that he grabbed in his dream of drowning, the same one who had woken him later in the actual mess hall. He was the one who had tried to drown him in a bucket in another dream. That was the name he had forgotten, the name of his bunkmate, Edwin. How had he forgotten all this? How had he forgotten it? And why was his name on the list of the lost? Nathaniel Squires. Fear froze Nathan in place as he heard his own name read aloud. It was a mistake, an error. He was not lost at sea. He was here in the field, listening to the tolling of the names. He tried to stand up, but his body would not obey him. He could only roll his eyes in terror as he saw what made it worse. The people in the crowd lolled gently in their seats, swaying as if pushed by invisible currents. Their skin was fish-belly white. Their drifting hands were swollen and wrinkled from long exposure to water. Nathan felt himself drifting along with them. Water rose up from the field, washing away their chairs, carrying off the stage. The Admiral went with it, still calling out the names of the lost from his impromptu raft. As the water rose and his voice faded away, the corpses around Nathan began to sing, a slow funeral song. The words were different from when they had sung it before on the boat, but Nathan found that he knew them this time. I went off to sea for a spell, and the sea she welcomed me. I've gone from the land I loved so well, but I'll never leave the sea. I feel like that one sounded a little bit better. The waters deepened and darkened, cutting off all light, pressing in from all sides. Although he could no longer see them, Nathan could still feel the bodies of his crewmates all around. Stop fighting, he imagined Ed saying to him. It's so much easier once you let go. With a final last gasp for the memory of air, Nathan surrendered himself to the sea. That was, I'm not sure I really understood that one. I do not think I understood that one at all, folks. Here we go. Let's read this one now. That was pretty awful since your dad was on the subs. Oh yeah, he was on the subs, wasn't he? Yeah, I could just imagine that. Naval Nightmare. Let's call that one the Naval Nightmare, yeah? That one was creepy. I think from the beginning of the story, he was dead. And everything he experienced after that initial part was a dream. Alright. This should be the last reading of the night. Ooh, wait, this one might be a little too long. let's find a shorter one. Here, this one should be good. Do Not Connect, written by Brandon Wills, edited by Craig Groshek again, and thumbnail art also by Craig Groshek again. Mr. Groshek seems to be all over these stories on this website, so one has to assume he probably owns the website. There are no available audio adaptations, and the estimated reading time is 13 minutes. Once again, I'm using my handy dandy ruler to help me read. The break room reeked of fish. Someone had reheated food in the microwave, and now the whole place smelled putrid. The odor was so strong that it reached down the hallway to my office. I watched a coworker leave the restroom right after taking a hefty shit. Did I really just read that? Okay. And walked straight through the door. No hand washing for her. Oh my god. Another guy I worked with has an affinity for ripping huge farts several times an hour and not caring who heard or had to breathe it in. This is tremendously so stupid so far. Okay. Okay. Focus. Get it together, guys. A little bit of a lighthearted note to start on. Snarf? Why do I hear dial-up? Are you connecting to the old internet? These are only a few things that drive me insane about working in my office. When I exit the doors, relief would hit with an intense wave of immediate satisfaction. I may be smiling by the time I sat down in my shitbox of a car. Just to get out of that building was enough to send me to the ascent of joy. Have you ever had a job like that? It can be torture to be there for 40 hours a week. Believe me, I tried to find something with comparative pay, but I've never found success. I had a few interviews, but I was not selected for a callback. I concluded that it must be me, that this job had drained me of so much that I was a husk of who I was. A walking memorial to my former self. Now I was damned to be stuck here. I was denied for one job when they said I was too bitter. Am I? When you're so close to the same humans day after day, after a while they can get after your nerves. Combine all those grievances into one heaping pile of shit, and the whole situation starts to collapse. Whatever bit of sanity you've managed to sustain suffocating you. The literal stink of it all. Granted, I'm not a perfect person by any means. I'm lazy, and my wife complains that I don't do enough chores. But I do most of the things that are required to me. I am a devoted and doting partner. We don't have any kids, but looking at everyone else I know, I feel like we're better off in that way. I don't want some kind of responsibility. What if those current kids turned out to be like these people I loathed so much? Besides, adoption and IVF are expensive. We could use that money on fun stuff instead. Adoption can also be difficult for a gay couple, but that's another discussion. Did I misread somewhere? No, I did not. I feel like that was a random aside, but let's continue. Raising kids just doesn't sound like a good time to me. It doesn't sound like a good time to most people, but hey, people still do it. Last summer, I applied to take my 2 weeks of remaining paid time off to do something I would consider fun. My wife, Alyssa, and I were going to take a vacation at the end of August. I thought by then I'd be at my breaking point. and I would need the time away from my personal little hell. The trip would be at a cabin, retreat in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere. There's my wife, books, and booze to keep me company. No distractions from modern life to stress me out or bring me down. No thoughts about work. No thoughts about scheduling or time constraints. No cares about life at all, except what the next page held and the next dram of whiskey. Not gonna lie, going out on a retreat out in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, just a couple, sounds pretty good. This guy's got a good idea of fun. Not into the drinking so much, but hey, to each their own. Just read books, spend time with your loved one. Sounds like a fun time to me. The time leading up to this trip felt like a dream come true. Excitement was hard to contain. I could feel it bubbling below the surface, dormant volcano elation waiting to ignite. At work, I had become more chatty and outgoing than I usually was. People were surprisingly happy and positive towards me after that point. I began to think, does my job suck just because I make it that way? But the answer revealed itself soon. Then one day, my boss dragged me into his office to inform me my vacation time had been canceled. We had a massive order that we needed filled, and they needed me on duty. My soul was crushed. I'm not usually a crier, but I broke down at my desk. I nearly did it in front of him, but I managed to hold it in. The last thing I wanted to do was look weak in front of these fucking scumbags. I looked into it, and it was perfectly legal for them to cancel my paid time off. And I had it with them, and the legal system let me down too. To add insult to injury, the tuna casserole bandit was added again today. The middle-aged balding man was named Danny. He was from our accounting department. I only recalled his name because there was recently a birthday announcement sent to the entire company. It was just a generic thing, probably automated. It had no personalization to it at all, which goes to show how much they cared about us. When I arrived back at my desk, I searched for that email until I found it. I was the wary detective, and he was the unknowing criminal. I wrote up a lengthy email about how fed up I was with the way he ruined my lunches. Nearly clicked send, but held back. Logic conquered my raging emotions, and instead I saved it to my drafts. The kettle filled with hate inside of me continued to boil. About to start the whistle at any moment, I kept the email up with a photo of his, clearly not recent. Photo. His blobby, bespectacled face made me want to punch my monitor. So instead of exploding, I took a break and took the elevator down to my parked car, and then proceeded to scream myself hoarse. My throat ached and my ears rang, but it felt good to release some of that rage. On my way past the cigarette smokers blowing their cancerous clouds around the front doors, which was supposed to be against the rules, but no one seemed to give a shit. Two middle-aged men chatting it up in front of the elevator didn't seem to care that I had to walk through the fumes of their self-inflicted poisoning. All of my rage returned as I rode up the free floors, my fist clenched and white-knuckled and trembling. I sat down at my desk and decided I wouldn't do a single task for the rest of the day. Instead, I would look at job boards and online sites to find a new place to drain my soul. I was scrolling down through job listings on a website, a notification dinged on my laptop that had connected to a new Wi-Fi network. What the hell? I guided my cursor to the settings and saw it was now connected to a new Wi-Fi network labeled as Do Not Connect. Confused, I switched it back to the normal network, but after a few seconds, it switched back to the other. Under my breath, I croaked out a frustrated, "What the fuck?" None of the websites had an would work anymore. After relaunching my browser in an attempt to fix the problem, I was redirected to a page that was only labeled with an IP address. The page was completely blank, besides a large, bold text in the center that said, "How can we help you?" And a text box below to enter a response. I snorted and thought, "Is this a joke?" Eliminate the tuna casserole bandit so I can eat lunch in the break room again. Then I clicked the submit button. I had to chuckle a bit. This had to be some kind of survey that the company wanted us to be honest about. So I was. They had no idea who I was talking about anyways. They'd say it's anonymous. I'm willing to bet they could trace these back to us through our computer's IP address. I didn't expect anything to happen. Part of me hoped this wasn't a virus that I just released into the entire network. My laptop suddenly switched back to its normal internet connection and everything began functioning normally again. I was a bit puzzled, but once I continued my job search, I had forgotten about this weird little incident. The toiling commenced, and not another thought. The next day, after churning orders all morning, I headed to the break room for lunch. There he was, the fucking tuna casserole bandit. I walked in just as he popped his favorite dish into the microwave and started heating it. I sat at the opposite end of the room, trying to be as far from the smell as possible. I had chosen the wrong day to bring my lunch that required the microwave. There was a chance that my food was going to absorb the stink, and then I would probably hurl like I was a demon possessed. Think about it made me gag. From my seat, I glanced up at the man every few seconds. He stood there, scrolling on his phone as the tire wound down. His thumb flipped endlessly on whatever app he was on, not appearing to read anything. Just flip, flip, flip. Is he a psychopath or a narcissist looking for new prey? Was he severely ADHD? Perhaps he was just really bad with technology. He bent over to look at the turning food as the timer counted down. Instead of the normal beep that his food was finished, he was brought down by a loud bang. He hit the floor, blood pouring out of numerous wounds to his face. He clawed at the lava-hot food, masking him. I ran over to see if I could help him. Shards of plastic from the explosion had pierced his face, including his eyes. He screamed and screamed as he writhed on the floor. I called for emergency services, who had arrived several minutes later. By then, the blood on his face had turned his once white dress shirt into a dark crimson. His skin had descended into a macabre gray. Then the EMTs whisked him out of the building. He was barely moving. Damn! Did, the dish explode, or did the microwave explode? What? Later that day, my boss held a meeting by his office door. He stood there, arms crossed, staring out the window. He looked contemplative and worried. Once we had all gathered, he turned around, revealing a printed-out statement in his hand, most likely direct from Human Resources. Yee! That's hardcore? Yeah, this is pretty hardcore, man. As many of you saw and heard, we had a bit of an accident earlier. Here's what we know. Todd Sterling from accounting was heating his breakfast in the microwave when it exploded. Only a few people were here at the time. due to an accident on the freeway. Thankfully, Sammy," he pointed at me, "rushed to his aid and called 911. He was rushed off to St. Vincent's Medical Center, and we are hoping he will pull through. I wanted to hold this meeting to stop rumors from spreading. And I wanted to be honest with you. Thank you all." The rest of the day went normally, but the break room was cordoned off and stayed that way for days after. I typed away, feeling some guilt. The memory of typing the request into that random website haunted me. What if they'd somehow pulled my history and found out what I did? Could they even blame me for such an accident? It's not like they could find footage of me planting a bomb in the microwave or some other manipulation to cause it to blow up. I simply sat there, waiting for my turn. Also, I thought, what if it had been me? What if my face was shredded, my eyes punctured by the industrial plastic of the exploding kitchen appliance, so it was the microwave itself that exploded. Okay. Forever doomed to be blind and permanently disfigured. Later that day, our boss informed us that he had died. And I felt fucking happy. I could barely contain the joy I felt. No more tuna stinking up our break rooms. No more holding my nose as I walked down the hallway. No more watching him pack his gullet with his smelly fucking dishes. No more. For the next week, I did more work than I had in the last month. I fulfilled orders, answered emails, and tallied costs and totals like a well-oiled machine. Nothing could bring me down. I went to the bathroom on my break. I ran into Miss No Hygiene after taking an extremely smelly dump. And the sink was dry as a bone, and I sat at my computer. I was infuriated. How could a grown woman be so lazy? It takes a minute to wash your hands. Not only does this keep you healthy, but everyone around you too. This should all be common sense, but not to them. Her name was Bernadette. She was the only woman sales boss. She was also known for her thickly applied makeup and her penchant for flirting with the young guys in her building. Bernadette wore a wedding band, but that didn't matter much to her. I had heard many tales of young men climbing into the passenger seat of her Ferrari at the end of the day, to be whisked away to a day of having her makeup smeared all over their crotch and some surely smelly sex. I think our main character is a girl. I unlocked my computer and my web browser immediately took me to that mysterious web page again. How can we help you? My heart began pumping hard. My smartwatch informed me that I had an elevated heartbeat. Duh, I thought. I'm about to get another wish granted. Teach Bernadette a lesson. I typed, then clicked submit. My smartwatch notified me again. I couldn't help but smile. Bernadette had become a scourge, a plague on the health of our office. She could easily become our typhoid Mary. She didn't work close to me, but I guarantee that she didn't use hand sanitizer and possibly didn't even bother wiping. Who knew how far her distaste for hygiene went? Maybe she loved it. Maybe she had a kink for the putrid stench of her unclean nether region. Whatever the cause, it didn't seem to bother the young guys who lined up to get inside of her. My regular internet connection resumed, and I went about my day. The anticipation was trying to kill me. The next day I walked with a coffee I had bought. I couldn't help overhearing some of the salespeople by the coffee machine. Has anyone heard from Bernadette? It's not like her to be this late. I grinned so wide that it touched my ears, but I tried to hide it by sipping my coffee. It was pointless to resist the dark joy filling me. Bernadette went home the other day, and her normally submissive husband met her by the front door, wielding a revolver that he had recently purchased. He knew about her frequent affairs, but I only had enough of being a good little cuckold. I just had to read that word out loud. Wonderful. Bernadette had embarrassed him in front of their family, children, and friends one too many times. He unloaded 5 rounds into her head, 4 while she was already dead on the ground. He saved 1 more for himself. It was never really made clear what exactly his breaking point was. I was relieved to never get her shit germs on my hands ever again. I could now go to the restroom with peace of mind. Okay, so our protagonist is a girl. Okay, I see. So our protagonist is lesbian. Alright, okay. Bernadette's position was filled a week later by one of her former staff, a guy named Carlos, who bought us BMWs that same week. He has an affinity for big-breasted brunettes, and he's not married. More power to him. That's my type too, and that's partially why I chose Alista. I have a thing too, I suppose. Things that can never be unread. Anyways, the office had become more peaceful with the abrupt departure of Bernadette from this world, and it became even more productive. So much so that I was promoted to a lead position, which meant I would be in charge of 10 employees, and below my manager in the hierarchy. It also meant a pay raise, which I used to buy my busty brunette Alyssa a brand new SUV. Our old one had been falling apart lately, and it was time to trade it in. She was quite happy with the surprise. We had... Not reading that. You can't make me read that bit. Let's just say they had adult fun time and skip over that bit. It was thrilling and the most fun we had in a while. I was only disappointed when she made tuna help her for dinner later that night. The incident made me think of Todd Sterling, the deceased tuna casserole bandit. You couldn't have paid me enough to take a bite of that shit. Fed it to the dog when she wasn't looking. He ate it with vigor, probably glad to eat something that wasn't a cheap corn byproduct that only smells vaguely of meat. He chomped into the plate, was nearly clean, only soiled by his slobber. I asked her why she made that, and she said it was a recipe she stumbled across on TikTok. People said they loved it. It was the best dish they ever had. They recommended it to everyone. I gagged. Slept in the guest bedroom that night. Next day I sat at my desk. It was situated slightly higher than the rest, so I could literally oversee my employees. They all worked efficiently, and I didn't need to crack down on laziness. I was quite proud of them. 2 months had passed since my promotions, and things were looking promising for the first time in a long while. If only things at home would improve too. Instead, it only became worse. I was afraid I'd never see that strange Wi-Fi connection again. It hadn't appeared since I asked for that promotion. For a time, I thought about what I would use it for next time. But once it became apparent that this may not happen again, I drifted away from those ideas. I was glad to find out I was wrong. A few weeks ago, as I was tallying up our numbers for the month to present to the higher echelon of the company, my computer informed me that I was connected to Do Not Connect. I smiled. How can we help you? I considered entering the notorious office farter, but then I had the better idea. A promotion, I responded. The rest of the day went smoothly. On my way home, I told Alyssa I was bringing home fast food. We made love in the SUV again. We even slept in the same bed. It was hard to sleep that night. Insomnia consumed me. Wonder how my boss would meet his demise. Would it be a deranged homeless person with a pocket knife, a boating accident, a mishap with a sex toy? I found out the next day. On my way to work, I had to order a coffee with a double shot of espresso to wake me up. My smartwatch said I had 2 hours of sleep, and I could definitely tell. My eyes burned and felt heavy. My brain was slow to respond. The coffee helped. I walked in to find a Zoom call meeting waiting for me. They didn't tell us the gory bits, but my employees gossiped to me about it later. He had a rather unfortunate accident on his way home. A semi-truck cut him off on the freeway, and the ensuing accident left him decapitated, his head rolling down a hillside into a ravine. The head wasn't found for weeks, and by then animals and the elements had wiped away most of the flesh, or at least that's what I heard. Some people saying by the coffee machine. The best part is his girlfriend, 22 years younger than him, was giving him roadhead when it happened, trapping her corpse between his legs. Meanwhile, a week later, I was the one fit to fill the position. Was death too extreme just because he canceled my vacation several months ago? It wasn't just that. He ignored my complaint about annoying co-workers. I went to him several times and nothing ever happened. I'd also asked for raises, applied for promotions, anything to make my time here a little more bearable. This strange night Wi-Fi network was a much better boss than he had ever been. I now have my own office and a wonderful view of the city. The same office he had occupied. Nope. She's a busty brunette named Tanya with a tongue of gold. The office walls were an ugly gray, and I've painted them a shade of blue that I left. The chair had been replaced with another because I didn't want my ass to touch where my former managers once did. Plus, this one lays back for extracurricular activities. As for my Alyssa, she had taken a new habit of farting at a near constant pace. It sounds funny, but I'm disgusted by it. It's hard to be aroused by someone when they could rip one right in your face. We didn't even sleep together anymore, and I believe she has an affair going on with herself. She comes home drunk, her neck a wreck of bruises and her clothes disheveled. She walks with an extra pep in her step when she's not making fish entrees for dinner. I've confronted her several times. She refuses to let me see her phone. I know what she's up to. I've been betrayed before, and I can see it coming from a mile away. She has a U-Haul. She was a U-Haul lesbian anyway. We moved in 2 weeks after 2 weeks of dating. We started in a small apartment downtown, but bought this house in a more rural area to get away from the noise. Lucky for me, her credit was shit, and only my name was on the mortgage. If I happen to get the Do Not Connect Wi-Fi once again, I know what I'll ask for this time. And that was Do Not Connect by Brandon Wills. Thank you all for joining me here for Scoop spooky, scary Saturday. Sorry, my voice did a lot of weird things while reading. That last story was a little raunchy and brutal. Yeah, it was pretty brutal. I mean, I get where this person's coming from. I've had my fair share of annoying coworkers too, but like, damn, I've never wanted any of them to suffer or die. Or suffer and die, you know? But I'm also generally a very non-violent person. I get angry, yeah, but I don't think retaliation in anger is usually justified in most cases. Especially when it's something small like that. There can be cases where retaliating is fine, but yeah. Thank you for reading them. They were definitely brutal. Yeah. The first one was brutal in a more sort of nebulous way, I think. And the second one was just brutal. I can't imagine the amount of pain having a microwave blow up in your face. That cannot feel nice. But thank you all for joining me here tonight. I had fun. I hope you guys had fun. Thanks for hanging out and enjoying me reading or not enjoying me reading. If you didn't enjoy it, why were you here? Nobody forced you to be here if you didn't enjoy it. So, you know. If you liked it, subscribe. If you don't. It's whatever. Do whatever. I'll see you guys next week. Remember to stay out of traffic. Stay out of small spaces you can get trapped in. Stay out of engine compartments. Stay hydrated. Stay awesome, possums. I love you all. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you Tuesday, where we're probably going to be playing Pal World, because it feels like it's been too long since I've played that.